Welcome to Bound by Books. I'm Marianne and I write paranormal romantic suspense and paranormal romance. And today I am joined by
Sherri Hayes. I write steamy contemporary romance and BDSM erotic romance. How are you today, Marianne?
I'm good. I'm good. And you?
I am knee deep in edits.
Knee deep in edits. I'm I'm knee deep
Yes.
in cricketing because I have a book signing at the Sleepy
Mm,
Hollow Cemetery this weekend, and I am making swag that I can give away and so forth.
exciting.
So yeah, went out today to buy a witch hat and some other fun things to wear, because you're gonna sit in the cemetery on a Halloween weekend. You gotta look the part, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Sometimes
So
those themed ones are kind of um, they're just fun in their own right. To
oh
get out of the tended to get out of the book world per se, you're in it, but you're not. It's that
yes.
writing that line. It can be quite fun.
This is I think this is my seventh year doing it with a break
Mm,
last year, because I was just too far away to make it. But yeah, because it's considered a quote unquote craft fair.
yeah.
But it's so much fun. There's such diversity, and then every afternoon around 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, especially if the weather's really good, the headless horseman plays a visit. So it's a lot of fun. The kids get a break
That's
out of it. You get a real kick out of
that's
it. So
that's cute. Yeah, I have done a couple of crafts slash vendor fairs that were not book focused. And I've had some really positive experiences with that. Now, granted, there are some you're always going to get the handful, especially if you write romance or in particular steamy romance. You're going to get that little, some people who are a little bit prudy and just have their nose stuck in the air. And but the overall consensus, I mean, at my last craft fair that I did, I had a woman that stopped by and she was just so happy because she said, "You don't normally see these types of books at events like this. You just
yeah,
don't." And she was the types of books she reads. So she was really excited to see that. So yeah, it's good to kind of branch out and get things going. Well, today we're going to kind of talk a little bit about that and some other things. Um, Both Marianne and I have been um, published for over 10 years. My first book published in 2010. When did your first book publish, Marianne?
when I was with a small, mid-sized publishing house, it was
Mm-hmm.
2010, but I have been in
Okay.
indie since 2014. So
Okay.
almost 10 years as an indie, 8 years as an
Yeah.
indie. But yeah, my experience with the publishing house was very poor.
Yeah.
So, being an indie is something that I have been on the job training, so to speak, and that's kind of leads to what we're talking about,
Yeah.
today, which is when you're not with a publisher worth their salt,
Mhm.
which I have to give props to Tina Moss, our one of our potters here. She is the owner or co-owner of City Owl Press, and even though they are a small slash mid-sized press,
Mhm.
Tina knows her stuff. She
Yeah.
does.
And
Um,
that's the thing. I mean, anytime you're going with a publisher, especially a small publisher, and I say that because the big guys, you kind of know what you do a little research, you know what you're getting into when you talk to people. Tradpub it's kind of got some well-known pitfalls and some well-known advantages, although the advantages are shrinking as
yes,
ND has gained traction over the years and become more legitimized. But the pitfalls of that are kind of well known in the industry. But small presses, it's really dependent on which small press you go to. So when you have to really do your research, if you're going to use a small press. And that's not to say that, you know, just small presses in general are bad, because some of them are awesome. Some of them
Yeah.
will do tons of stuff for their authors. And others just are horrible. I
Yeah.
mean,
No, I
they're
agree. I agree. I
yeah, they're
happen to, unfortunately, have been with one of the ones that was horrible.
mhm,
And me being of the generation that, and of the mindset that you give people a chance, you make a commitment, you don't bail at the first sign of trouble,
mhm,
because that's just not the way relationships are built. You have to kind of
right.
weather the storm. And that's something that I had to learn the hard way, is that
Mhm.
know when to say, this is just not
Not
working
working
out.
anymore. Yeah, I
Yeah.
got really lucky with the small press that I signed with initially, and they were they were really, really great. And when they decided to shut down their doors, because the owner wanted to kind of take a different direction, get out of publishing altogether, they they did everything right that they should have done. They just they just signed off the rights back to all of their authors. They didn't make us pay anything. They said you are free to use the edits that you think, that you have already done. You don't have to re-edit anything. The only thing you've got to do is recover it and, get a new ISBN. But I have heard horror stories from people who have left small presses, um, and they've basically been told that, you have to have everything re-edited, which I don't quite understand, because, we own all that. We own everything that happened from the time you handed over that manuscript to us and on. And so that kind of goes to the point of, make sure that you have a lawyer read over any contract you sign, because you need first of all, you need an out of your contract. You need to have something in there that says, if the publishing house is not doing their job, if they're not doing what you are signing, what the agreement is, in the contract, if they're agreeing to spend, to market your book, if they're agreeing to, you know, put it in bookstores, whatever it is that's in that contract that you're agreeing to, you need to make sure that it says somewhere in there that if they are not doing X, Y, and Z, that you are able to get your rights back.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
mean, you do not want to be stuck into a situation where, and there was a small press like this, they don't exist anymore, where the owner of the small press owned the rights in perpetuity, which means forever.
Yeah.
And authors signed up. They were a very, very well-known press at the time, and it's for erotic romance. And authors were signed up in droves. And I mean, a lot of authors ended up having to take the owner to court, in
Solora's
order to,
Cave.
yeah, in order to get the rights back. So you want to kind of get it. But I know, as a new author, when I was first publishing my first book, I would have never ever thought that I would have had to do that much upfront research. Most newbie authors are like, oh, so excited. They wrote the book, they wrote their first book, and they're ready to publish it. And there's a publisher interested in my book. Where do I sign?
Yes.
And taking that step back and going, okay, this is a legal contract. It's your
Yeah.
I mean, your book is your property. So if you wouldn't do that for, say, buying a house or a car, would you
Yeah.
expect to go to some shady dealership and buy a car and sign a contract and not look it over first? Hopefully
No,
not.
of course
Hopefully.
not. It's just that they prey on people's dreams.
Yeah.
They prey
Yeah,
on
they really
people's
do.
dreams, and there are vanity presses out there where,
Oh,
if I ever
no.
hear, I mean, my sister had written a children's story. The book's written, and now she's got to look for an illustrator. And she was talking about somebody had told her to go to Fiverr, and she was looking at college students, art students, that maybe
Mhm.
they would want to do it. And I said to her, do not enter into any agreement with anybody until you have an attorney look at it and until I look at it. And
Mhm.
she says, well, an attorney. I said, no, no, no. I said, there are different types of attorneys. I said, you need to get an intellectual property attorney that is familiar with publishing, number one. I said,
Mhm.
and number two, you have to let me look at it too, because I'm going to know about all the different things that I made the mistake of doing that I don't want you to do as well.
Mhm.
Like signing up for royalty share or splitting your royalties with somebody and then having them bail. What if they don't
Mhm.
deliver on time? What if the work is crap? Make sure that if you're going to hire somebody who is just, you want it to be work for hire, but then they still own the copyrights, and then they hold you up, and then you cannot publish your book. You have to have everything laid out crystal clear before you do anything. So, I mean, but
Yes.
that's a totally different situation. Publishing is just one angle of this. The other thing is the mechanics of writing. I mean, you and I were talking a little bit about this
Mhm.
before we started recording. And I remember being a young, eager author, writing my first book, and then having everybody and their brother have an opinion about my writing, which is, critiques are important. You need to have
Right?
critiques, but you have to remember a critique is only as good as the quality of the person giving you the critique. you know and
Yes.
I would have people tell me, I mean, I had this one thing that was given to me years ago by an editor, um, and it was called Sharpening the Quill. And you can't even find it anymore. I found it when I was packing up when I had moved. It's somewhere in my office in my mess. But it basically slaps you on the wrist every time you use an ly adverb, or you use
Yes.
passive voice, like, if you say somebody was running, or was laughing, that type of thing. Staying away from the gerunds and so forth. And you know what? I agree. If you use it too much, it's lazy writing. It is lazy writing.
Mhm.
Everybody needs fresh writing, as as I have been taught. And you need to, there's the standard of get the job done writing that is interspersed with writing that is not cliche and not used over and over and over again, where the
Mhm.
writer, I mean, when the reader knows what's coming, because because it's so ingrained in our vernacular, that you have to find some ways of saying things that are unique and will grab the reader by the face, type of writing. You want
Yeah.
you want that, but you cannot allow yourself to get so hung up that you spend more of your time trying to not, to fix what you've got on the page, that you don't write any other pages. And
Yeah, I
what
can't
I
imagine. Yeah, I can't. The LY thing is a big one because like when I first started writing, like that was a really big thing. Like as even on
Yeah.
social media and author groups is like you can't use LY words, you can't use LY words, it's just lazy writing. And it's like, okay, but there are some, especially when you're writing genre fiction. If you're writing a character, in normal human conversation, we use LY words.
Mm-hmm.
We just do,
Finally, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
even
yeah.
stuff like really, very, those type of words, we use those.
Right.
Yeah, if you're writing a technical journal, if you are writing a guidance thing, where it's nonfiction, then I could understand maybe trying to keep your LY words to a minimum. Although I think they use them more, at least when I was younger, reading textbooks and stuff, they used LY words all the time. But yet we're
Yep.
not supposed to in genre fiction. That makes no
Well, I
sense.
think I think that the what everybody gets hung up on is the not supposed to. You know, they
Mm,
don't want you to. They don't. When you're writing, you don't want your writing to sound juvenile. You don't want your writing to
mhm.
sound amateurish. So using ly adverbs, yeah, you can use them, but just don't have them be your
Yeah.
go-to to make something emphatic. There are other
Yeah.
ways to make things emphatic and to make a point and yada yada.
Mhm.
But there are some words that I do try to stay away from, and I do a global search. I stay, the word like, the word just, the word that, those
Yeah.
words, are kind of, they're filler words, so there has to be way, I'm not saying don't ever use
Yeah, I
them,
was going to say,
but
that's the thing. There is not a moratorium. There is not one word that you should never use. Like there is not one word that where I could emphatically say, do not ever use this word, because there's always a place somewhere where that word would be appropriate.
right. But
So
I think
you
it
can't
goes
write it
back
off.
to it. I think it goes back to what we were talking about, is that you want your work to sound professional. You want your work to sound like what you're doing in terms of craft, and that's where you draw the line between people who are amateurs and people who do have a grasp of the language and a grasp of how to craft,
Good
craft
stories.
not just good stories, but craft it in using language appropriately. You have to, there are something, like don't ever end on a preposition. There are times when you're going to, because like you said before, when we speak, we don't always speak grammatically correct.
Yeah, we talked, because the thing is, if you make things too formal, now if you're writing a historical fiction, then you probably need to be paying more attention to things like that, because back in like the 1800s, they were a little more formal, especially if you're talking about aristocrats. I mean, they were a little more, like, kind of, I don't know, just very
Posh.
posh. That's the word. Posh, formal, whatever. And so you would have to, I would think, because I don't write historical fiction, but I would think that you would need to pay a little more attention to that, because they probably didn't end a whole lot of sentences with prepositions.
They also had their own language, their own way of speaking. The English that we use today, the casual language we use today, in terms of the way things were written, say the way Jane Austen would write or Emily Bronte would write, is completely different. And
language has evolved.
Yes, Pride and Prejudice happens to be one of my favorite all time Jane Austens, and reading the book is hella different than actually watching the movie, even, because
of course
you can't have the language as written in the book on screen. I mean, you can, but you'd lose half your audience. You'd lose half your audience.
Yeah, because it just doesn't translate to modern day audiences all that well. And especially in a cinema type situation. So thanks. Now so we're talking about writing, and you can't talk about writing without the inevitable conversation of plotting versus pantsing. That's kind of I kind of, I guess, came in a little ahead of the game in that respect, because I had already figured out in high school that I'm not a plotter. I can't plot. It doesn't work for me. Doesn't matter if I'm writing nonfiction or fiction. It does not work for me. But I will say that back when I first started writing, there were so many people that were telling you have to plot out your novel. You have to plot out your novel. And it got so bad to the point where after like a couple of books, I was just like, do I was really starting to question that. Like, do I mean, should I be plotting this? But then I kind of went back to myself. I'm like, why am I did try it. One book I tried. And I was like, and I did the same. I ended up doing the exact same thing that I did when I was in high school, when I read write outlines. I completely, after like one chapter, completely abandoned my outline and just wrote. And it's, I send it to, I would send it to my editors, and my editors had no clue I didn't write an outline, because my brain just functions in a different way. But it is still one of those kind of like trip ups, because I was starting to question myself in the early parts of my career as to whether or not I needed to have an outline. Like, was I not a real author if I didn't outline?
No, I don't think you can. I think you can be either or. You can be a hybrid of both, because that's what I kind of am now, a hybrid of both. And I think it's, like I have this picture of Nora Roberts, and she's holding up a dry erase board, and it says, basically anyone who tells you there's only one way to write is a fucking doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. Excuse my language. Gonna have to put an R rating on this. But that's basically what it says. And you know what? Because everybody is like, Nora Roberts is the queen of head hopping. And when I was first writing, I used to head hop as well. And, I had an editor say to me, well, you can't do this because you're not Nora Roberts. And I was like, okay, what if it's something where it's very, very clear to the reader, which head they're in? And so I had to kind of unlearn that, but there are certain places where I still head hop a little bit. And one of those is during intimate scenes, because you've got two people that are so, enmeshed, to put it politely, that, sometimes you want to know what's going on in the other person's head, as long as it's clear for the reader. I've never had a reader.
It doesn't happen too often.
No,
because
it doesn't happen.
you don't right, but you don't want to do like 2 paragraphs in one person's head and then flip to 2 other paragraphs in the next person's head and then flip back to the first person's head and go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Yeah. Because then it does to a reader kind of feel like you're ping ponging.
Yeah.
They're a ping pong ball.
Who's speaking? Whose head am I in? So that is the only time I ever allow myself to do it. And I have kind of weaned myself away from that, because that goes back to, unless you are Nora Roberts, with a following and 1,000 books out there, that it's, and she's also trained her readers that that's what they're going to expect. But most of the time, most readers these days are not expecting people to head hop. So you have to be very clear whose POV. It doesn't have to necessarily be that you have to not have 2 different POVs in the same chapter, but you have to make a very clear, delineated break so that they know whose head they're in now. Because the last thing anyone wants to do as a writer, whether you're brand new at this and thinking, oh my God, I'm going to stick my toe in this pool, or somebody who's been doing the backstroke in this pool for a decade, like Sherri and I, the last thing we want to do is lose a reader when they're in your story. You do not want them pulled out of the story for any reason whatsoever, because the minute that they're pulled out, the effort that it takes for them to get back into the story, they'll put the book down and it'll become a DNF, a did not finish, and you don't want that.
Yeah. Now, did your writing, like, did your view on that change over the course of your publishing career?
Yes.
Did you have, and how did it, how did it change?
It changed because I found that when I did pick up a book that was head hoppy all over the place, that I kind of was like, because then your editor hat goes on your head and you're like, okay, this is not working. It's very hard to read a book that you're not enmeshed in because the writing is you're correcting it in your head. Like, you should have, this is the way it should have been.
Oh my goodness. That's one of the downsides to being an author. I love reading. I have always loved reading, but I will say that one of the huge drawbacks of being an author for me is the fact that I cannot turn my editor brain off. I cannot. When I'm reading, I cannot turn my editor brain off. And even a book that I love, that's well written, if too many like errors start to pop up, I will notice them. Drives me nuts because it pulls me out of the story. And like I said, even if I'm loving a book, it will pull me out of the story. And I'm like, stop it. Just stop. This is a good story. You like this story. Just stop. Turn it off.
Yep. I just had the entire Cursed by Blood series, all 8 books, read by a blogger / book talker who was going to give me feedback on the genre of the book and the covers and whatnot. And paranormal romantic suspense, paranormal romantic thriller, is where I landed squarely with, like where it could also kind of tickle the ivories of paranormal romance. But the one thing she did say is that there were certain books that needed to be edited better. And you know
Mm.
that even she loved the stories, loved the characters, she thought they were strong, but she said that she thought that they needed to like a little bit of spit polish, not a lot, but enough, enough that it caught
Enough.
her attention.
Right.
And this is the other thing, because I emailed her back. Her name is Becca, and she is amazing. Love, love, love this girl. I said to her, I said, either you would feel so sorry for me, or it would make you nauseous if I told you how much money I have spent on editing, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of spending money on people that I thought were going to edit well,
Mm-hmm.
and to have this come back, and it breaks my heart, because it's like,
Yeah.
if you do not have a trad publisher who has a stable of editors at their fingertips to be able to pass this off, and you're trying to find editing services that are actually worth the money you're going to spend on them, you sometimes you don't always get what you ask for, you know
No,
and
no.
and and then it becomes on, what do? I have a pre-order, I've sent this out for editing. I miss my pre-order so that I can read it again, or do I give it to somebody else with a clear set of eyes? Are they going to miss stuff too? So that begs the question of what's allowable and what's not allowable. The aim is to have
Yeah.
zero
Yes.
errors. The aim is to have
Yes.
zero. But
But that's hard. That is very hard. And
what
it
is the
doesn't matter.
percentage?
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter how many sets of eyes that you have on it, because I mean, people do miss stuff. We're human. We miss
Yeah.
stuff. And there's only, if your book is 99% correct grammatically, don't stress about it. I mean, I used to stress way too much over, if my 80,000 word book had like a handful of typos, I used to stress so much about that because I wanted it to be perfect. And now, while I'll fix them if I find them, or if somebody points them out to me, I'm not it's not as distressing anymore to me that I find them, that they come up, because I know that I put my books through a professional edit. I know I have them proofread before I publish them. And I also know that perfection is an unrealistic expectation. So I think that's a big thing that's changed for me over the course of my publishing career, is I have learned to let go a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I let go a little too early, or maybe I was just too interested in getting the next book out, which is another thing that, what your younger author self compared to your older author
Mhm.
self, at least as far as I'm concerned, that I learned is that when you put out a book, you need to market that book, and you need to make sure that that book sells. And if instead of just putting it out there and then jumping into writing the next book immediately, which is the way that I handled things in the
Mhm.
past, and trying to get things out, it could be
I
an issue, especially
Yeah.
people who choose to do rapid release, making sure that
Yeah.
your editor is on the money, and that
Yeah.
your editor is not just one person looking at it with one set of eyes. You need to have a proofreader, as well.
Mhm. Yeah. I think part of that is a keeping up with the Joneses mentality. Because there are some authors that publish every month, every 6 weeks, every 8 weeks, what have you.
Yep.
And at least it's kind of died down a little bit now, but there was a point in time within my publishing career where people were really pushing that narrative that you have to publish every 6 weeks, or at least every 8 weeks. And I, for one, am not a fast writer. I'm very meticulous in my writing. And that's just my writing style. It's
Yeah.
just how I do. And there is no way that I can write a book in a month. Just isn't happening. I mean, let alone the fact that my life in general, my personal life and my responsibilities outside of writing are vast and keep me quite busy. I cannot write a book in a month that I'm just going to be able to turn around and publish within a couple of weeks. It's just not going to happen. And so I think in that respect, you need to respect your writing process. I've learned to do that. And, you know, a lot of that stems from Amazon's algorithms, which is a whole other subject that we're not going to dive into too deep today.
Thank you. No.
But
Thank you, please, and no.
But again, that's kind of what, that kind of goes back to understanding the publishing process, knowing what you want out of your publishing career and being consistent with it. I wouldn't recommend, if you're writing genre fiction, to, publish every 2 years. But if you're getting out a couple of books a year, it's not that bad. Don't beat yourself up over it if you can't. You can't put out a book every month or two. But that's, like I said, that's one of the things that I think. But I kind of look at it as, like I said, a keeping up with the Joneses mentality. It's like, well, this person over here is doing it, so I should be able to do it. And sometimes it's not a realistic goal, and that's okay.
No, I mean, it's the other thing is also, don't measure your own success by somebody else's success.
Yes, because they're not living in your shoes and you are not living in their shoes.
Nope.
So you can't do that. Well, that kind of is a good segue into the big elephant in the room.
You don't mean me. No.
No, I didn't. I meant the word marketing. Oh, this is such a big subject. One of the biggest things that I have learned over the course of my career in the marketing sphere is you can't try to do everything. There's so much marketing available, like marketing classes and webinars and everything available in the author universe, that I could realistically take a class every waking minute of every day. And so when am I supposed to write? When am I supposed to implement those marketing tactics? If all I'm doing is taking class after class after class after class, when am I actually doing anything productive to actually sell my books?
Yeah. And when are you also going to put things into practice to figure out what actually works and what doesn't work? Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I have just learned to kind of pare down, pick one or two people in the marketing sphere that I really like. Our Mod Pod has been really great. We've formed a support group. That's how we met.
Yep.
We met through a marketing class, and we got together because we needed a support group because we were all having some issues implementing the teachings in said marketing group.
Yep.
And find a support group, find a couple of marketers that you enjoy, and follow those people, or one or two, three at most. Seriously, really, any more than that, and you're gonna be bogged down in marketing classes, especially if they're a regular marketing. If you're actually doing like a long-term class. If it's just like a one-off, that's a little bit different. But if you're following somebody's marketing program or a long-term class, you don't want to be like having 10 of them that you're trying to follow. Find one that works for you, that you're comfortable with, that you like their style, and go for it. See if it works. If it doesn't work, you can always drop them and find somebody else to fill out space. But you don't want to get so bogged down, because there was a while there where I was just trying to do everything. It's like, oh, there's a marketing class, I'm going to take it. Oh, there's another marketing class, I'm going to take it. And I would spend, and these marketing classes, they rarely are like a half an hour. They're an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours a time. That's a lot of time to be dedicating to sitting in front of your computer, watching a class, not writing, not actually doing active marketing. or, spending time with your family. You're not doing any of those things. So use your time wisely, I guess, is something that I've, tried to be a little more proactive and organized about it.
Well, marketing is its own animal. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're looking for someone to actually help you with the mechanics of writing and with the craft itself, who's not going to tell you, don't do this and don't do that, but are going to point out examples that you can then organically kind of just get used to. It becomes almost like a rhythm when you're writing, in terms of empowering your character's emotion and getting into the depth of character, as well
Mm-hmm.
as fresh writing, as what in conjunction with get the job done writing.
Mm-hmm.
There is one person that I can recommend wholeheartedly, and everybody should write this down, and that's Margie Lawson. MargieLawson.com. She is an amazing editor and mentor when it comes to the mechanics of writing and
Mm-hmm.
helping you get over that hump, that mountain that you need to climb to go from amateur to professional. And I wholeheartedly recommend her, classes. And they're you print them out. You can either print them out and follow them, or she's got webinars as well, and they're not super super expensive. They're
And these
not.
are for craft. These are all for craft.
This is all for craft, and
Okay.
it's I think I did empowering character emotion. I think it cost me like $24,
Mm.
to be able to take it. And it's not just one lesson, it's like 15 lessons for you to
Mm.
go through. And it's, they give, and she does weekends. I did a weekend with Hannah Byron. One weekend, the two of us did it, and it happened to be one of the weekends that they were coming to pack up my stuff in my house before I moved last
Oh,
summer,
wow.
and it was crazy, but it was 8 hours on a Saturday and 8 hours on a Sunday, and it was only $50. And the amount of information that she covered was amazing. It was really well worth it. So you don't have to break the bank in
Mm-mm.
order to be able to give yourself, a boost, and
Mm-hmm.
and find resources that are out there.
Yeah.
Anybody who's trying to say, well, you have to pay me $5,000 in order to, to unlock this
Mm-hmm.
Pandora's box of nuggets of things that you're supposed to want. That's bullshit as far as I'm concerned. Because anybody who's looking for that kind of money, unless somebody's got a contract in their back pocket, if you're going to spend that kind of money, that's going to guarantee you to be able to write a bestseller. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That's just them doing well with marketing to play on your dreams, to
Well,
prey on your dreams.
I also think you got to look at what they're charging you. I think you need to look at what they're offering you too in
Well, I'm talking
return.
about somebody
Oh,
off saying they're
yeah.
going to charge you $5,000 or 20, even $2,500 for something that's 6 weeks or even 8 weeks. That's crazy. I mean, now there's the self-publishing formula. That's Mark Dawson, that I think is like $900. But once you
Mm-hmm.
pay that $900, that's it. That's it for life. You're done.
Yeah.
You can keep going
Yeah.
back and forth. Keep
Yeah.
learning from him, no matter what he's put out there, the things that he's tried and seen what worked and what didn't work. You don't have to pay another dime. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Is this a money making world that industry that we're in? Yeah. And are there plenty of people who are charlatans out there who will
Mm-hmm.
prey on your dreams to be able to make, line their own
Mm-hmm.
pockets? Absolutely. And that's where it's, you have to kind of do your research, and you have to talk to people and make sure that you're talking to the right people.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, again, I kind of think it goes back to what are you getting for your money? Because if you're willing, if you're gonna have somebody who's willing to hold your hand through the process and answer your questions as you go along and critique you as you go along and things like that,
Yep.
then you're probably going to be paying more for that than you are for a pre-made class.
Right. But I'm talking,
So,
there are
right.
pre-made classes,
Oh yeah,
classes
that
that are
yeah.
recorded that you have to kind of cipher through. It's, and even if they give you a breakdown where you're going to be paying a certain amount of money every month, they're not going to give you a preview of what you're going to get. And until that money's paid, until you signed on the dotted line. And then after you signed on the dotted line, it's like, all right, now you've signed a contract where you're going to have to pay this person, $200 or $300 every month for the next 12 months. And you're locked in. And it doesn't make a difference whether you're satisfied or you're not satisfied. You signed the damn contract. So,
so do your research.
Yep.
I mean, just do your research. Because I will tell you that if you talk to any author that's been in this industry for a long time, probably for 5 or more years, they will probably tell you that they have been burned on a marketer or a program or whatever at some point in time in their career.
Right.
Because there are some smooth talkers, they present a good game and they don't deliver. So before you go into it, and that's not to say you shouldn't take classes, that's not to say you shouldn't go into programs, just a matter of make sure you know what you're getting for the amount of money that you're getting it. And I will say that if you're paying any significant amount of money, there should be some personal coaching involved in that.
Absolutely.
If we're starting to talk about thousands here, if you're starting to talk about thousands of dollars, you need to be getting personal coaching out of that, because that is a lot of money to be paying somebody, to not have them offer to look at what you're putting forth, to give you personalized advice or critiques on what you're putting forth. Because most classes don't say that. Like you said, Mark Dawson's, class is $900, but it's for lifetime access. There's other classes that are, $400 and $500, which again, it depends on what you're getting for it. If it's a class that's, giving you a lot of information that you can utilize to help your career, then it may be worth it. But again, you got to look at the whole picture.
Right.
So I think that's actually going to wrap up what we have for you today. I think we covered quite a bit of topics. If you have been in this industry for a year, 5 years, 10 years, even 6 months, share with us some of the things you've learned in your publishing journey. We would love to hear. You can go to boundbybookspodcast.com, leave us a comment. And until next time, have a great writing week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wait! Before you go, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check us out on our website, boundbybookspodcast.com.